Good morning. Last week, I think we lost a couple of minutes on my video, and I'm a little concerned about that. So I'm just going to say hi for a few seconds and then start right in on massive solar flares, right? There's so much going on. So, what do we need to do to talk about this? Okay. First and foremost, today's Sunday, the 24th. Tomorrow is a full moon and a lunar eclipse. We're going to move that way. But first, what I want to do is it looks like I have only 5 seconds in now. So it did take a little bit of a stall time. Okay. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. Sorry if I'm repetitive, but boy, do not trust this system right now. Okay. Solar flares. We have had a massive amount of solar flares in the last 2.5 days. Started Friday. There was one in the morning, and then by about 2:30, it started bumping along. And between Friday at 2:30 Mountain Time and 7:50 Saturday morning Mountain Time, we had 11 solar flares, M-class solar flares. That does not include one X-class and a whole bunch of high-level C classes, right? Okay, so from Saturday morning yesterday until this morning at 7:52-ish, there were 14 M-class solar flares. 14. That does not include the sheer amount of almost M-class solar flares that were in the seas that just continued all day throughout in between. So to me, what it looked like is the flares were hanging out at a high C and then bumping up into M's and then bumping up into M's, right? So some of these were short and some of these were long range or long duration is what they say. So that means that you get like a real big, like jab of energy into us, or it goes long and it stays for quite some time. So it's holding us, right? So it means that there's tons of photons in the air. It means that we're a little rattled and a little shattered and a little awake. I mean, depends on who you are and what's going on, right? So I'm going to do a little bit about solar flares and define them, and then I'm going to take you into, because I'm a big picture um, multidimensional thinker, I'm watching 3 or 4 things coming together and I think I've got a really good perspective of what this might look like for you and what you can expect over the next 2 weeks. So hang in there, and let's have some fun with this. Okay, so first, when we get a C class solar flare, it's like nudge, nudge, tap, tap. There's something going on. Pay attention to it, right? When we get an M class, that goes right after our conditioning, our layers, our calcifications, our existing patterns that just aren't working. It's almost like, and it starts bugging us. So, this is what we start to look like when the M classes hit us. The mental sort of exhaustion of dealing with all of this is really, really hard. Or I love the way that Osho's cards will help us define this. Or the fire, just the sheer strength of this makes us want to collapse and sort of anxiety go out sideways, right? Some of us are feeling like this, like, wow, that was cool. That's what I did. I have a couple of girlfriends who were just like spot on, energized, ready to go, right? So when these M class flares happen, these are what we're going to call in tarot the tower. So here is a picture of the tower, which is all of your cells are being ignited, all of your chakras. You're having energy coming in from above, and you are sort of trying to figure out what stays, what leaves. Can be a very Kundalini experience. If you go to another deck, what we have is all of these old systems are just starting to fall apart, right? Absolutely collapse. Okay, so that gives you an image of what the tower is. A tower means that there's something that you need to stop doing. So we're going to explain that, right? So first and foremost, this week I was listening to Andrew Bartzis, and he's a galactic historian. I like to listen to him. Sometimes he bugs me, sometimes he doesn't. Like, it was just one of those random things. He said solar flare, so I wanted to see what he had to say. He brought something up that I hadn't thought about, and it's just changed everything for me, which is when the sun emits these energetic high frequency bursts, right? And it hits the earth. It hits our whole earth. It hits our entire atmosphere. What it does is it messes with our dimensions. So if we were solidly in the third dimension, wondering about the fourth dimension, kind of trying to figure out how often we can stay in the fifth dimension and what's beyond that, it's kind of collapses them or moves them around, and we're in a lot of dimensions at the same time. That makes sense to me because I'm a multidimensional being. I've been since I was a little girl. You can see how I bring perspectives in and can see things from different ideas, right? So, wow. If those dimensions are wonky and they're not established and they're moving all over the place, it explains how some of us feel like we're crazy. We're losing our minds. It's not working. Let's take it one notch further, which is if those solar flares, right, hit Earth, they're also, because the sun is the center of our, or it feeds, it's the center of our solar system, it hits all of the other planets at the same time. So each of the planets in our astrological zodiac signs in our astrology, each planet that's in our solar system is also having the same issues, if not different, because they have different energies than we are. So Jupiter's expansion's getting bigger. Saturn's need to ask you how you're doing and hold court as to where are you with the projects you were on. These are all getting bigger. So astrology all of a sudden becomes a lot more interesting because what it's doing is it's those players are also getting bigger as well as all of the tensions around us. Make sense? I was just like mind blown. Okay. Now, there's a couple of things that are going to happen. I'm not sure that the solar flares are going to calm down today. Who knows? Who knows at this point? We might have another a 10 or 11 or 14 day. It might even go up even higher because we're going into a lunar eclipse tomorrow. We are entering the eclipse season, which is between technically at the lunar eclipse tomorrow night. 2 weeks later, April 8th, to the solar eclipse, which is supposed to be the big one that goes across the United States. I was at the one in 2017. It was huge. If this one's bigger, oh my God, that's what I'm going to say, right? So, as we are going into this full moon, it's in Aries, right? And it's a Libra full moon. Now, that might not mean anything to you, but I just want you to sort of hold the idea of Aries. Aries is the first sign in the zodiac. It's the ram, it's the I am. It's an action, it's alive, it's self-oriented, it's confident, it knows what to do. And in that sign, we have these three characters that have all lined up that I think are connected to these solar flares, right? One is Mercury, two is Chiron, and three is the North Node. Now, you don't have to know those. I'm going to explain them to you, but let's just imagine that three people that have come and knocked on your door, and they're going to have a conversation with you about all of this tower moment stuff, right? So first and foremost, Mercury's the communicator. It's communication, it's intellect, it's rational thinking, it's the thinking patterns that we put into place. It's not very emotional. It's adaptive. Mercury, it rules both Gemini and Virgo. So Mercury's going to come in and go, let's talk about this. Let's be really linear. Let's like figure this out and let's do this and let's move it forward. Because think of Virgos and think of Geminis, right? Standing shoulder to shoulder. All of these guys are within 7 degrees of each other, right? Shoulder to shoulder is the North Node. And the North Node is, what's the way to describe the North Node? It's your purpose. It's what you're called to explore. It's what you're here to do in this lifetime. So if you really want to know what your purpose is and why you're here, you want to go to your North Node, which is how do I develop and expand and evolve as a human being in this lifetime? Go to your North Node. What sign is it in? What house is it in? And what are you here to do, right? So go to your North Node. Standing right next to the North Node is Chiron, which is, and I've done Chiron, and there's lots of videos on here on my channel on Chiron. It is called the wounded healer. It is where our deepest wounds, our deepest repetitive patterns that we keep experiencing over and over again until we can kind of cut through them and find out, oh, when I deal with these patterns, these are my magical gifts. These are the things that I know how to do. These are the ways that I can transform my life into the skill set that is innate within me. So you've got hidden skills and gifts overlaid with all of these wounds. You've got the North Node, which is tap, tap, tap. Leave that shit behind you and go in the direction that you want to go. Along with Mercury, that's how are we going to do this? Let's adapt. Let's grow. Let's talk about it. And it's all being held by Aries, which is, I know what to do. Let's go. And we're being shook and shook and shook by this tower. Which, just a little side note, if you go to the Sephiras on the Tree of Life, the Sephira on the right side is Hod, and it's governed by Mercury. The Sephira on the right, which is the emotions, by Venus, is called Netzach. The card, the pathway between the two of them is the tower. So our balance, our hips are being rocked. Our ability to stand in who we are is being rocked. Our ability to cut through as to who we are is being brought up by these solar flares. So whether you put something on a vibration and you watch all the calcification go off, or, I was a kid who collected rocks. I had a rock polisher. You put them in there and they go, jerome, 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 and next thing you know, you have these beautiful, shiny things. I think that's what's going on. Because as we go into this lunar eclipse, as we start to sort of go, wow, Libra in Aries is sort of talking to me about how am I going to deal with these patterns that keep coming up, and how am I going to apply them towards my relationship, and how am I going to reconcile some of the things that are out of balance and release some of the baggage and attachment and stuff that I keep thinking my life needs to be. Because what we're doing is we're bringing the unconscious patterns forward, and we're doing it with some new multidimensional perspectives. Does that make sense? To me, this is just fascinating that we have this great opportunity ahead of us. So I have 6 tips. And if you want help with any of these tips, drop me a note. If you relate to these, if you have a story about this, put it in the comments. Make sure you like and share, and we'll start. Okay, so the first tip is that some of us are in the flow. Man, some of us are expanded and focused and thriving with these flares, and some of us are crunched in, and all we can feel is pain and overwhelm and agitation, and life is hard. Okay, this is just the level of what you have here to either break through real quickly, right? Doesn't have to be hard, doesn't have to be arduous. What you're burdened with, how do you just get all of this stuff off your back and just start going up the hill yourself? Because some of us feel like this, right? So take a look at the points on this video and sort of assess it like, what is my Chiron? What is my North Node? What is it that I'm being asked to do? And what are the symptoms that are coming up? And what reduces them? And what helps and what doesn't? So you're in the assessment mode of what you've been learning from today, from these solar flares, right? So assess what's up for you, and know, are you being crunched in, or are you being expanded, or both, like a yo-yo, right? Number 2, let the North Node and Chiron guide you, because from today, moving forward over the next 2 weeks into the solar eclipse, which is when, bam, our new sense of self can really be solidified and locked in on April 8th. So do homework, do your self-research, work it, let it flow. Find out what needs to be freed and what needs to be let go of, what needs to be seen, what needs to be present. So number 2 is do your homework. Don't just sit back and crawl in a shell over these next 2 weeks. We have 2 weeks to sort of, 2 weeks and 1 day to really open ourselves up. And I think this is magnificent. Number 3, modify your schedule. the entire world is being crunched, and having 11 solar flares on one day, 14 on the other, at a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse means the world is pretty much in the same place. So when you modify your schedule really, really between now and April 8th, look at how many hours are you working? Are you even more burdened, right? More stressed, mentally stressed, and agitated, and what can you do to reduce that, right? So modify your schedule. Let's schedule less things. Make sure you get some time outside. Anything that takes the pressure off. Take the pressure off you, your family, your partnership, the collective. Anything you can do to take that pressure off, do it, right? So look at your, if you have to cancel some things, if you have to say, hey, I'm not ready for this, or this is the one group that helps me. Like right now I'm running a tarot class, and for whatever reason, this class has gone from level 1 to level 2 to now level 3. And I believe that we're just, really, really holding, oh, we're holding each other as we're going through this because we didn't want to do it alone. And most of us live alone. So I think it's really fascinating, right? Okay, so number 4. Someone's here. Do I hear a Pittsburgh accent? Well, Juliet, no, it's not Pittsburgh. I lived in Pennsylvania and New Jersey for off and on about 7 years. So you probably can hear a little bit of that. That's funny. Okay, number 4, deepen your self-care. Do your daily walks, hydrate, keep your foods in line. Some of us have to eat really clear foods right now. Some of us are just going into, I can't get enough potatoes and root vegetables just to hold my body down. Rest, breathe. And look at this 2 weeks as like you're in a boot camp. Things are challenging, they're hard, and they're beautiful, and it's fun when you're done. You feel really good, but you work really hard. We're in boot camp right now. So deepen your self-care. Number 5, explore your multidimensionality, your perspectives, your views, your lens, those things that sort of like hold on, like go look at it and go, how multidimensional am I? If you look at ADHD, if you look at boredom and behavior and repetitiveness, start to own that there's some multidimensionality, some multiple intelligences, some multiple perspectives that you can hold, right? And pay attention when you get those intuitive hits, when you get some sort of an instant knowing, some sort of a body reaction like, ooh, when I go this way, it feels really good. When I go that way, it doesn't feel very good. Start to pay attention to how your multidimensionality is working for you, right? Because I think it's a really good time to start stretching that and owning it and start to say, well, maybe that's who I am, right? And number 6, last one, is have compassion, because we're at a time where we have to let go of judgments. We have to let go of how somebody's living, what they're doing, what they're not doing right, what we're doing. That's not helping anybody. We're not dividing anymore. We're kind of bringing all these pieces together. So have compassion for this process, because you're going through it. Every single human, every single sentient being on this planet is going through it. Everything with a cell is changing. So have compassion, have kindness, and breathe gently and bring this through. Bring yourself through over the next 2 weeks with kindness, compassion, love, forgiveness, new awareness. Celebrate it. That's all we can do. So yeah, these solar flares are kicking our butts right now. And I think there's a reason for it. So stay tuned. I'll do this next week. And if you go over to my Facebook page, I always put Pam Young and stuff up there, and she's amazing. So just know that she's gonna give all of us the information on solar flares as soon as it happens. So take care, and I will see you next Sunday. Bye.